And welcome everyone. Super stoked for this episode. Got a special guest here. There's definitely quite the spectrum with your body and your soul and your mind, all three of them connecting. And this guest right here is really powerful and tries to tap into that at the highest form, which sounds like he does at a very successful and efficient rate. So, Matt, go ahead and introduce yourself and kind of what you do and how you go about it.
What's up, guys? So, yeah, I'm a holistic health coach. I'm a detox specialist. And essentially, I help people reverse chronic health conditions through fasting. That could range from plant based diets, fruit fasts, water fasts, um, using different herbs or supplements, and then also teaching them just basic spiritual principles to apply to their life in order to not only heal physically, but also mentally and spiritually and create the life that they want rather than being the victim of disease.
Right on. Would you mind? Are you able to go into like what chronic diseases you work with specifically? It might be all over the map, but we would
Yeah,
love
yeah,
to
for
know.
sure. So actually, my perspective is that disease doesn't even exist. Disease is a bunch of symptoms that the medical industry has grouped into an umbrella term, but I really believe there's only one disease, and that disease is acidosis. It's an accumulation of acids within the body, and the symptoms of disease that we've labeled are just the body's way of removing those accumulated toxins from the body. So it could range anywhere from diabetes to cancer to arthritis, anything under the map, because at the end of the day, it's all the same root cause problem.
Right on. That's an interesting take. Disease is not. I mean, what you're saying is it kind of roots down to this one problem, and that's the buildup of acid in your body, which I do agree that. Yeah, it's kind of funny because when you see all these gut issues, bodily issues, nervous system issues, that inflammation is most of the time, or pretty much all the time, it's pretty acidic. You think of lactic
Hmm.
acid. The word lactic acid.
Yeah.
It's the way it builds up in your muscles. Because I played football in college, and that was such a big thing, taking ice baths and stuff like that. You always talked about the lactic acid buildup, and then you talk about the acids in your stomach. How those have to be regulated to digest food and be able to digest nutrients, and you talk about leaky gut. Like there's so many different things that go into the bodily structure, but I like how you simplify it. It's just huge buildup of acid. And it's interesting how you talk about the modalities that you just did introducing yourself. So that being said, what do you like? Since everyone is unique, everybody is unique. How do you structure each client? Because obviously it's not going to be the same thing. How do your sessions use? How do you plan out your sessions? How do you strategically attack the root problem?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, really, I use a biofeedback scanner. And
Mm.
so you hold on to this device, and it comes back with any type of imbalances, deficiencies, organ stress, types of toxins being physical or emotional. So, it's going to come up with this overall blueprint of your state of health right there in that moment. So, then I can customize a protocol for that specific individual. That being said, the root cause is always going to have something to do with toxicity, with malnutrition, with dehydration. So, the one thing that's going to be the same across the board is we're going to be addressing those three root causes of disease or acidosis, essentially. But the biofeedback scanner would be the primary way that I individualize things for that individual. As I'm doing these scans, I'm also going through a whole series of questionnaire of symptomology. And so you take the information that you're getting from the scan plus their symptoms, and that tells the whole story of what you need to know and where to start.
Gotcha. Symptomology. That's a real word, correct?
It is.
That is crazy. I honestly didn't know symptomology was a real word. Can you break down symptomology?
Yeah, so let's say that I have someone in front of me that has a thyroid condition. Well,
Hmm.
they may not know that they have a thyroid condition, but they're talking about how they feel cold all the time. They feel run down. They're getting headaches in the morning. They're dealing with constipation. Their skin is dry and flaky. It's automatically, I know that they have
Hmm.
a thyroid condition because that's what the
Yeah.
symptomology is telling me.
Okay.
So, the same thing if we talk about adrenal problems, they're talking about they have constant state of fear and anxiety. They're always
Yeah.
tired, but they can't sleep at night. It's like, obviously, you got an adrenal issue. So, the symptoms tell the whole story, and you pair that with the scan, you compare that with looking at the tongue, on the face, that it tells you everything you need to know.
Yeah, adrenals, man. I heavily
Huge.
relate to that. That was such a problem in my life.
Me too, man.
So how did you stumble upon this whole industry? When did you stumble upon it? How did the creation story of you happen? Like, I'm so curious how you got to this level because it's so unique how one travels to this realm. Because usually people, the way they start is they get into Western medicine and then they realize how bullshit Western medicine is and how bullshit the pharmaceutical industry is. And then they get into these Eastern medicine concepts. So, where did you begin to delve into all this? And, I mean, did you study medicine like in college? Or I guess, like, how did you get into this whole realm is what I would like to know.
Yeah, so I actually went the opposite route. So I dealt with like pain and symptoms of disease since I was a kid. And really, I just self medicated with drugs and alcohol. So I pretty
Mm,
much did hard drugs for a living. I did drugs from 14 till my mid 20s. So over a decade of just destroying myself with drugs and alcohol. And that whole time I'm in and out of doctor's offices trying to figure out what's wrong with me. And there's never any answers. They just want to remove organs. They want to put me on more drugs. So when I got sober in my 20s, I was really trying to figure out what was going on with me and find some solutions. And I quickly realized that they didn't have any solutions and had this epiphany one day like, they don't know what they're doing. They're just throwing shit at me. They have no idea how any of
right.
this works. So I started doing my own research and learning about diet and nutrition and started making some changes. As I was kind of going down that path, I learned about holistic medicine and naturopaths. And
Mm.
I met this naturopath when I was living in Austin, and it was so crazy. I walked in there, he's just looking at me, and he's like, "Oh, this is wrong with you. This is wrong with you. This is wrong with you." He did some muscle testing with my arm, and was like, "You need these supplements." And man, within a month, all the symptoms of these incurable diseases. I was diagnosed with liver disease, gallbladder disease, hypothyroidism, low
Oh my
testosterone.
goodness.
I had gut issues since I was a kid, fibromyalgia because I had chronic pain. And so that really just like blew me away that, just taking some supplements could make that level of change. Now, that really opened me up to a whole new world, and I became obsessed with natural healing and natural medicine. And something that I realized along my journey is although the supplements can be helpful and they can put out fires, I kept falling back into these states of dis ease. I kept having these resurgences of all these symptoms. And so, as I was diving deeper into solutions, I learned about the needs for detoxification and the needs
Hmm.
of fasting, essentially.
Mm.
So, when I switched my focus away from supplements and things like that and made my focus more on detoxing my body, changing my entire diet, lifestyle, my mindset is huge. That's when I started to get well and then actually maintain it rather than continuously falling back into these old cycles.
Gotcha. Do
So,
you
sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna ask, so do you even supplement like do you take any supplements now?
So not sometimes I will. So I mostly
Okay.
focus on herbs though. So
Herbs, yes, yes, yes.
I really believe that the herbs are for the healing of the nations. You know,
Yeah.
every every herb is tissue specific. It was literally designed for a specific part of our body to bring a specific resonance to strengthen, nourish, and heal that specific organ. So when you dive down the reality of supplements, they're not regulated. You don't know where they're coming from. You can get really good, high quality medical grade supplements, which I do use with some people. But at the end of the day, these supplements are coming in the feed bags, like what you give to animals, and you got scientists in the laboratory formulating these formulas, and it's just obviously it's better than pharmaceutical medications and things like that, but
Right.
it's not going to address the root cause. It's just going to put a band-aid on it, just like pharmaceuticals do, in my opinion.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So detoxification, highly agree with that. Very fascinating. I definitely love detoxing all the time. Like it seems I always like to just detox. It seems so almost, I mean, even going into a sauna, I feel like is a detoxification. You could be doing that
Right.
every day. So like it's just funny how detoxing your body, it's a never-ending thing. But it doesn't have to be this very painful experience. I think it can be just like a healing, cleansing thing, and so I just did a 60-hour fast. So I just did a 60-hour water fast. Um I love fasting. I've done it in total. I've only done 3 long fasts like this over, like a 48-hour period. But I feel so much cleansing and clarity when I don't eat for, 3 days, 2.5 days, whatever. How does your fasting process look?
For me specifically, my own personal
Yeah.
practice.
Yeah, yeah.
So I fast on a regular basis. So right now, my current lifestyle is I eat one meal a day. So I want to hit autophagy every single day, which is around that 17, 18-hour mark. You enter into that state, which essentially means your body starts to scavenge for alternative fuel sources by recycling old damaged cells or zombie cells. So I do that every day. And recently I've been doing 3 to 5 day fasts, at a minimum 2, 3 times a month recently.
Gotcha.
Another big thing that I'm big on when you're doing fasting is doing colon cleanses at that same time. So doing some type of enemas, whether that's herbal or baking soda or coffee enemas, which we can talk about some of that too. But in my experience, it's so important that you are actively cleansing that colon while you're in that fasted state. Otherwise, you're reabsorbing all that toxic waste within the colon, and that can make it a pretty unpleasant experience.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, what is an enema? Can you go into the different enemas actually?
Yeah, so an enema is just inserting, well, it can be a whole host of different things, but inserting water into the colon in order to cleanse out old fecal matter, dried fecal matter. We have all this mucoid plaque and buildup that builds up in the intestinal wall. And so by doing different types of enemas, you're able to pull that stuff out because that's constantly being absorbed in the body. So typically, if I'm working with someone in the very beginning, I ask them to do baking soda and sea salt enema with distilled
Mhm.
water. And that baking soda is an alkalining agent with the sea salt in there. It's very cleansing. So, you lay on your left side, you insert it, you fill up your colon as much as you possibly can. You sit there and massage your colon. That helps break up the excess fecal matter and things in there, and then you release it. So you're just able to dump all these toxins. I'll also utilize herbal enemas. So pretty much any of the good cleansing herbs, burdock root, milk thistle, dandelion, you
Mhm.
name it.
Yeah.
And you brew that up as a tea and you insert that, and that's going to not only help detoxify the colon and pull out that excess fecal matter, but it's going to support the liver and the gallbladder and cleansing those areas. And right now, my favorite is a coffee enema. And, it's not the coffee that you drink, it's a green coffee. It's actually an Ayurvedic practice.
Mhm.
And you insert that through the colon, and as you lay on your right side, the blood passes through about every 3 minutes. So if you lay on your side for 15 to 20 minutes, that's 5 or 6 times the circulation is going through. And the liver and the gallbladder just dump bile. And that bile is filled with all these excess toxins that are absorbed into the liver. The liver is like a sponge. And so
Right.
it's just cultivating all these toxins and things like that. And so when you do the coffee enema, it gives it the opportunity to dump, 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 and wring itself out. And so then when you relieve yourself, it's like instant pain relief, uh, mental clarity, energy, and it's not really from the caffeine. You absorb very little of the caffeine rectally. Most of that caffeine is going into the liver through the hepatic vein in order to get it to dump that bile. So.
That's wild. And you can do this from your house?
Oh yeah, absolutely, yeah. So I usually, like I said, I usually start people with baking soda and sea salt enemas. Then the next month we'll move into some herbal because you want to get that colon cleaned out before you start trying to go after that liver. Otherwise, it's going to dump with nowhere to go.
Mhm.
So, but yeah, you can do all of it at home. You want to get a stainless steel enema bucket so you're not putting more toxins in your body. A lot of these people are using plastic or these enema bags,
Uh,
and you want to avoid that like the plague. Um, and so, yeah, as long as you make it correctly, you let it cool down. It's very easy. It's only weird the first couple times you do it, and then you get used to it. And the benefits far outweigh the awkwardness of getting started.
yeah. So, do you do this every time you fast?
I do enemas every time I fast. Yeah,
Wow, that's wild.
man,
That's
when I was in Austin and I was still pretty sick, I do you know what colonics are?
no. Can you explain that to our audience?
Yeah, so a colonic is essentially like a high powered enema. It's like 45 minutes to an hour long enema. And it's got this enclosed system. So the practitioner will insert a tube and it fills your whole colon up with water and then pulls it all out, fills it up with water and pulls it all out. So you're sitting there and you're getting these huge releases for about 45 minutes straight.
Holy shit.
It's crazy the stuff you see coming out, man. You see all crazy colors. You see all these parasites come out, all of it.
Oh man.
So so I did 25 rounds while I was in Austin when I was chronically sick trying to get well. And that whole time all the stuff is coming out, man. 25 rounds. So that just shows you how much extra debris is in the body. So when I fast now, it's crazy. Like I could be fasting for 5 days. I'm regularly cleansing myself. I eat one meal a day and I still have stuff coming out of me. It's wild.
Whoa, that's crazy. Parasites. Would love some input on because you talk about worms just now. I've gone through a couple different parasite cleanses. Most that I've found on holistic doctors, like on Rumble, and through just like friends who are in that holistic wellness practice. With the wormwood. Uh, that wormwood mixture that you can buy literally off of Amazon, and then like the water cleansing tablets, the Aquaphor I think is, or not Aquaphor, the Aqua, I think it's called Aquaphor. Those tablets you can buy on, I think you can buy those on Amazon too, and ivermectin as well is so, what parasite cleanses have you done? Because when I did my parasite cleanse, oh man, dude, I was on a different level of energy. Like I felt just so free. And it's funny because like I've I do sober spurts, so like I'll go sober for like a couple months at a time. And it's funny when I do parasite cleanses, and if I have like a drink or something when I come back, it's just funny how easily I get drunk because part of it's not drinking for so long, but I think part of it is like cleansing the way I cleanse my liver. It's just it's almost an extreme. But what like how do you do your parasite cleanses?
Yeah, so one, I'm going to focus on herbal. Like you mentioned ivermectin. You know, ivermectin is just synthetic wormwood.
Is
So
it really?
they just, yeah, they just made it synthetically so that they could patent it and sell it.
That's wild.
Um,
It's
and so
it's
that,
funny because it's super cheap to get from people. Like you have to get it through. Like you can't just go out and buy it, unfortunately, because the U.S. government doesn't allow it.
right,
But I know a lot of people took it. I know a lot of people took it during COVID, which started a
yeah.
whole fiasco. But it worked, and I see why it worked because okay, so it's the synthetic wormwood, and I took that for about 30 days, and that's what I was prescribed by, my friend who's a holistic doctor and chiropractor. Um, he was kind of guiding me through it and how it works, and oh my goodness. So okay, so you do something different, herbal specifically.
Yeah.
What type of
Yeah.
herbal stuff are you taking?
So I use a couple different formulas. So as far as the worm cleanse that I'm going to use is going to have wormwood and black walnut hull and things like that. But I also
Hmm.
want to go after the parasitic bacteria and microorganisms. So podiarco and things like that are going to be a great herb for that. So I'm going to
Okay.
combine two formulas: one for microorganisms, one for worms. You're going to use a binding agent of some sort, and then a colon cleanse herbal. So we kind of stack all of those together, and then we're also going to be doing the regular enemas on top of that. The diet protocol is really important. So if we're doing a parasite cleanse, I want them to eat primarily raw, high in fruit, vegetables. People think that the sugar in fruit feeds these microorganisms and parasites, but that's just not true. It's pure sunlight energy. They feed off of fake processed sugar, refined sugars, carbohydrates,
Mm.
but not the natural fructose in fruits. It's That's just like
Heck yeah.
ridiculous.
Thank you for saying it. I
Yeah,
I sometimes have that discussion with people, and that's why when I talk to people, I think they miss the point because some people are like, sugar's bad in all forms, but that's not true because why would God create something that'd be
yeah,
bad? So
right.
like get organic fruits. Don't get the bullshit fruits that have that processed sugar in it. Get the organic fruits that are actually grown, which is hard if you don't live in a tropical climate to get some of the, like I live in the Midwest, so it's hard for me to get like a pineapple, or it's hard for me to get those things. So I just kind of stay away from those fruits because I know it's like going to be hard for me to access like an organic, pineapple in a sense.
Yeah, for
But,
sure.
if I can access like watermelon and those sorts of things from like a locally grown farmer, or I know I can get it organically here in, St. Louis, then I'll do that. And I have a juicer. The juicing type of cleanses that I've looked into is unreal. So anyway, didn't mean to cut you off.
No,
I
you're
love the
good.
point, with the
Yeah.
fruits. Great stuff.
Yeah, and I would even add to that, like the sugar in fruit is a monosaccharide. It's very similar to the glycogen stores in the liver. So
Hmm.
it doesn't even require the pancreas in order to be absorbed through the cell. So it can bypass that pancreas completely and be absorbed through that small intestinal wall for that cell. So it just acts completely different in the body than these polysaccharides, which would be your artificial sugars, your grains, white flour, things like that. So it's a completely different interaction in the body. The fruits are extremely astringent. Like if you have a bunch of soap scum on your shower and you use fresh lemon juice, it's going to pull that stuff right off, right?
Hmm.
And that's the power of fruits. They have these astringent properties, so they pull on the lymphatic system, they pull on the toxins. In fact, speaking of parasites, parasites hate pineapple. They hate papaya seeds. They don't like these fruits. They hate pumpkin seeds. So these high quality fruits and vegetables are actually powerful detoxifiers when it comes to any type of parasites and microorganisms and things like that. So I've seen people pass a lot of worms on all fruit cleanses with the herbs and enemas and things like that.
Yeah. So, with that being said, you talk about the pumpkin seeds, which I'm actually going to consume some today, which is kind of funny. Um, with that being said, like, why do the worms not like those? Yeah, fruits or seeds or whatever you consume, and what happens? Like, why don't they like it, and what happens when you consume those? Like, what happens to the worm exactly? I guess.
So I guess to answer that, I'll share my perspective on what parasites are and the role they play in the body,
Yeah.
and I'll kind of answer the question. So we have this idea in the West that parasites are the cause of a lot of the diseases and a lot of the issues in the body, but I actually hold a completely different perspective. Where if you look at nature, what's the role of bacteria and parasites in nature? Do you know?
Uh. Ooh. I guess I don't know. I always feel like everything's meant to balance each other out. Like, kind of like when people. This is gonna be. It's like a tangent, but like when people fear like spiders or predatory quote unquote insects. Those are to kill off like mosquitoes or to kill off different like other insects in a sense
Yeah.
to help you. It's like snakes kill mice, and mice kill, and like everything is a balancer. So I guess like the way I would think of bacteria and parasites, I guess in the wild, as I would say, um, to balance out, I guess, overgrowth of something. But what do you
Yeah, yeah,
what is your perspective? I'd love to hear this.
so if you're walking through a forest and you come across a dead deer, it's going to be full of maggots,
Yeah.
parasites, bacteria, right?
Uh
So
huh.
did the bacteria and parasites kill the deer?
Uh, no. Wait. Well, no.
No, they're there to clean up the mess. They're the decomposers. They're the
Mm.
cleanup crew of nature, right?
Ah.
So it's the same in the human body. I always say, if you want to know the truth about human health, take a look at nature. It's the greatest teacher. It'll tell you the truth every single time.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So we have a cleanup crew in the body, and we call it bacteria, we call it candida, we call it parasites, but they have a specific role in their body. They're essential in the body, but they need to be in perpetual balance, right? Just like nature's all about balance, our internal environment is all about balance.
Mm-hmm.
So when we're taking in an overabundance of high acid foods all the time, that creates an acidic environment within that body. Well, these parasitic bacteria, fungus, or worms in general thrive in an acidic environment because their role is to clean up the damage caused by the acids. They're the cleanup crew. So when you start to change what you consume, that starts to alkalize the body. It changes that internal environment, and then it's no longer a good space for them to be in. They're no longer being overly fed, and then the body can eliminate them. So it's more about changing the overall environment within the body rather than treating them with just pumpkin seeds or just this fruit or just that fruit. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So if I'm getting this correctly, it's almost like parasites are telling you you're not treating your body right, and it's like cleanup crew, and it's not going to be fun. But if you clean it up yourself, you won't need us anymore. We'll die off, and then you'll be healthier and happier.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, so I would say that parasites or candida is a symptom, not a root cause. They're a
Okay.
symptom of the toxicity and acidosis in the body. And yeah, as they're cleaning up that mess, their digestive process releases gases that are toxic to us, and we have to get
Mm-hmm.
those gases out, which is why it comes with symptoms when we have an issue with the parasites or the bacteria and things like that. So yeah, you clean up the body, everything else takes care of itself.
Wow. That's very unique. So with that being said, to me it's important, I guess, to get, just because I was an athlete, so I was big on like nutrients, macros, like things like that. What are your thoughts on the simple macros of like fats, proteins, carbs? Like, do you think any of that's real? Because some people make the argument that we were just marketed to actually need those things to survive.
Yeah, I actually love the fact that you asked that question because I like to talk about that on a regular basis. So, yeah, I like to think about diet or nutrition way differently than the construct that we've been sold. So, yeah, it's my perspective that when we talk about vitamins, minerals, macros such as fats, proteins, carbohydrates, that's all a construct that's been sold to us in order to sell products, like you said. It just is an alignment with the whole Western medicine perspective overall. So, in my opinion, it's all about energy accumulation. It's how much energy can you get from your food. You can have a protein powder with 20 grams of protein, but that's not bringing any sustenance into the body. That's such highly processed dead bullshit. That's not doing anything productive for your body.
Right.
It's nonsense. So for me, I want to go after the foods that are going to contain the most energy or life force in it.
Okay.
No. And this is why I'm so big on fruits is fruits contain the highest amount of energy of any other
Mhm.
food hands down. I mean, are you familiar with the term angstroms?
No. Can you explain that to the audience?
Yeah, so angstroms is like how they measure light waves essentially. So there's a type of photography called Kirlian photography, and they
Mm.
take photos of specific foods or people, and it has a specific amount of light energy radiating off of it.
Oh,
And
okay.
the amount of energy radiating off of it would be in terms of angstroms.
Okay.
So if we take a look at organic fruit, they produce about 10 to 12,000 angstroms of energy.
Okay.
If we look at vegetables, it's going to cut down to about 6 to 8,000 angstroms of energy. When we get down to raw meat, we're going to get down to about 2,000 angstroms of energy. Same as cooked grains, raw dairy, things of that nature. After we cook the meat, we pasteurize the dairy, we refine the carbohydrates. We're looking at 0 angstroms of energy. It's dead food. It's got nothing to offer energetically. So, I often hear people say, well, you got to have meat because of the specific nutrients in it. And so I'm not saying that's right or wrong. I don't know. But my perspective is it's more about the energy being cultivated from our foods and less about these specific nutrients as we've been kind of sold.
Mm. That's so fascinating. Um, so from in the perspective of fitness, do you think fitness has sold this kind of microcosm of what we should and shouldn't consume, or macronutrients versus mineral intake, and those sorts of things? I think of the Liver King whenever this type of discussion comes up, because he's all about raw meat and all this type of bullshit to sell um all these different things. And so what's your take on some of these, I guess, influencers in the fitness space specifically?
So the biggest problem is most people in the fitness industry are not healthy at all. They may be
No.
shredded, they have muscles, but
Right.
they are not healthy. I mean, if the average lifespan of a bodybuilder is substantially lower than that of your average individual because
Right.
of the amount of protein, fake processed foods, supplements that they're taking. It's just destroying the body. Um, Consuming that much protein is horrible for you. All right, just basic chemistry, right? Our blood is slightly alkaline, right? If
Okay.
it
Yeah.
gets acidic or too alkaline, you're dead.
Hmm.
All right. So if we look at protein, protein is going to be protons. It's the acid side of chemistry. It's that masculine energy. And when you eat an overabundance of protein or protons, it's going to start to deteriorate the body because of the level of acidosis being created by that high level of protein. And I mean, we know for a fact that high protein diets destroy the liver, they destroy the kidneys. So this idea that protein is the most important nutrients is just like ludicrous. Um, not to mention the fact that when you digest protein, say you eat a big piece of steak, right?
Right.
So what we need is the amino acids, not the protein. And the body will prove that because it'll take that piece of steak, which is a complex group of amino acids grouped together, and it's going to break apart that protein into individual amino acids.
Right.
Half of those amino acids will be broken down into sugar in order to make adenosine triphosphate or ATP, which is cellular energy. And the other half is going to be used to create protein. So when you eat high protein diets, you're actually adding a step of protein synthesis,
Hmm.
right?
Right.
So this idea that you need protein, it just doesn't make any sense. In fact, amino acids from fruits and vegetables are going to be more bioavailable, and you don't have to have that extra step of breaking down the individual protein.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, that's honestly crazy. And yeah, I never really understood the fitness industry as a whole, just because of how they market to get to these insane levels of physique that have no protective purpose, mechanism, whatever. Because I guess the way I think of it, that I never really thought of it till someone brought it up. It's like our ancestors weren't meant to be that big, and that
Right.
like our strength is more for longevity purposes. Like our strength is to last a long time by being able to run for long periods of time and be able to uh, have mental clarity, because like hunting and gathering, you know being our ancestors nature, you know thousand years ago or thousands of years ago. Um, like that still hasn't changed, you know? So like the concept of muscles is very unique because it's important for certain activities in sports. However, it's not how we were originally built, and I think a
Yeah,
lot of people miss that mark. You know, so
yeah,
it's very fascinating
yeah. I agree with that completely. I mean, people seem to think of muscles as healthy, but the more weight that you pack on, whether that's fat or muscle, the more work the body has to do to sustain itself. So muscles don't equate health. Lean muscle mass, absolutely essential,
for
right? That
sure.
will allow strength, but you don't need all this protein to build that up. So
Yeah, it's funny because I lost a bunch of weight and I was like 155 pounds, and I never got sick. My energy was great from morning to night without needing caffeine. It's wild how when I was 180 pounds, I had all these health complications. But when I was like 155 pounds, and people were like, "Oh, you're skinny." Well, I wasn't. I'm not skinny. I'm just like lean. You know.
yeah,
Only my
yeah.
brother actually created that concept of "you look lean," which I appreciate him always
Mhm.
him telling me that. Like he never called me skinny, he just called me lean because he's like, "You're strong, but you're just like not as you don't have like any fat on you," which I'm not saying fat is bad on the body. You know, it's a good reserve to have in
Mhm.
certain instances. Um, but the thing is, like, when I was lighter weight, less fat, my body never got like I didn't get sick over the course of like it was all I think it was like a year and a half because like I didn't have these toxins like on me or these like toxic mechanisms on me. Like my health was extraordinary because I didn't have so much dead weight on me.
Yeah. Yeah, I so right now I weigh about 155, and I used to be when I got sober, I got really big into bodybuilding, and I got up to 195, and I'm just like I'm yoked up, I'm shredded, but I can't scratch my back. I'm in chronic pain all the time. I'm always sick. I feel awful. I got fatigue issues. So on that external, people think that I'm really healthy, but I was chronically sick, you know.
Right.
But I'm jacked, and yeah, I get that same concept how skinny I am all the time now. But now I got unlimited energy. I'm feeling great. I got mental clarity. I can scratch my own back, you know. It's
It's
definitely got its
important.
benefits to staying lean. I would say that the healthiest people are very lean. They're not big and bulky, definitely not fat. So the lean is important. That's what it's all about.
Yeah, absolutely. So for yeah, you talk about being a bodybuilder, being large and then like slimming down. How long did that process take you?
The building up or the slimming down.
The slimming down.
I mean, so whenever I was pretty big when I first started making huge changes to my diet. So I eased in from this bodybuilding style and I kind of went into this vegan lifestyle. And so I started to shred out pretty quickly, honestly. And I mean, if I'm being honest with you, I was so big because I was taking SARMs and pro hormones and all these
Hmm.
supplements,
Yeah.
destroying my endocrine system, my adrenals,
Right.
my thyroid, you know. So I leaned out pretty quick because I'm not supposed to be big. I don't have a big frame. I'm not designed that way. It's not natural for me. So I started to thin down pretty quickly.
Okay. Gotcha. I mean, yeah, it's tough because I was like 190 at one point playing football, and my BMI was so high, but it was like I was so muscular. But the thing is, like being a 5'9" individual um, at 190 pounds, that's not like the BMI. I used to think body mass index. That's not correct. Like I'm not borderline obese because I have muscles, but that's not true. Like I was huffing and puffing all the time,
Mhm.
being 190, even though I had abs and like I was still running like a four, not a 4.4. I wish I had ran a 4.4, running a 4.740. I was still huffing and puffing walking upstairs, and there was just like no cardiovascular
Absolutely.
There we are. I'll have to edit that out. But yeah, yeah, it's one of those things where I yeah, I just, didn't understand why people were so addicted to like but I get why people were so addicted to like looking big and like looking strong, and that's what we've been marketed. But cardiovascular strength and endurance is important for a long term life because, like, if you think about it, cardiovascular runners can stay consistent for a long period of time, and that goes even deeper than just running a lot. That's like being able to consistently get up, consistently go be great, consistently, you know, do anything. Whereas if you're just here for the short term gains and looking, a certain way or whatever, how you gonna stay consistent in life when all you care about is just like how you look for a certain period of time, and that's what I had to learn through spiritual practice.
Yeah,
And
totally.
yeah, I think you can still be strong, but you can still be lean
Mm.
and be able to move mountains if you mentally choose to. Because I think everything's a choice. It's pretty wild, but yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree. And, it's interesting because we have been sold this level of vanity when you do have I've worked with myself and other people who are really big into their physique. And when you dedicate yourself to this healing journey and making these types of changes so that you can properly cleanse and heal your body, you're going to drop a lot of weight. And so it really challenges that perspective you have and that need to be validated through your physical appearance. And I think that that's such a powerful process of detoxification and healing the
Hmm.
body, is allowing yourself, for your perspective is you're breaking down, right? And that's really messing with your ego. And this gets into the spiritual side of detoxification. And you really have to let go of that perspective and that vanity in order to go down this journey of self healing and detoxification. And just to piggyback on what you said, as far as the cardiovascular being more important than these big muscles, if we just take a look at humans as hunters and gatherers, as our ancestors, you don't want these huge bulky dudes when you got to go out and get a kill. You need that stamina, you need that endurance, you need to have that cardiovascular strength, not these huge muscles. That's not going to
Yeah,
help you actually
absolutely. Yeah,
survive as a
it's
hunter
quite
and
interesting,
gatherer.
quite
So
fascinating,
I
and
think that that's a really good point.
I like the show. Oh my goodness, I'm blanking on it. It's on Netflix. It was like a survival show, and it was fascinating to see like big people going on this show, and they had to literally build their own shelter, and they have to hunt their own food, gather their own food, and it was crazy to see the differences in their appearance when they would be on day 40, and it's just like a month, month and a half, they lose like,
Mm,
40 pounds, which is crazy. Um, just because they are not used to the comfort and the ease of, what we have as humans now. And I think that's why I like fasting too, from a spiritual perspective, because it's uncomfortable to starve yourself for days at a time. And then, like, you have things come up where it's like, oh, it's just me and my thoughts because I can't think about digesting food. So, like, you have sometimes good thoughts, sometimes a little shadow work, but it's it's the best. And I guess from
sure.
a spiritual perspective, how do you integrate that with your business? Yeah, just like fasting and even just your business as a whole. Like, how do you integrate
With the fasting.
spirituality with it?
Cool. So, for one, it's my opinion that when we fast or we do any type of detoxification, that burns past karma. Right? You're making this sacrifice to eliminate the consequences of
Hmm.
consistently violating the laws of nature, which have resulted in this state of dis-ease. Right. So, I mean, from Eastern philosophies, water, they say that water fasting for a day burns a lifetime of past karma from previous lives. So, what I teach is like as we're in this detox protocol or we're fasting, we're making this sacrifice. And a lot of people in the Midwest, especially, have this Christian perspective, and we all hear about the powers of prayer and fasting. But I think it's over a lot of people's heads why that's so powerful. And you're making this sacrifice by choosing not to eat. You're making yourself uncomfortable, and then you are speaking things into existence, which is what we call prayer, right? So you have this power behind what you're saying to manifest your reality because you're making this current sacrifice. So as I have people on this detox or these fasting, I have them do a journaling practice. And that journaling practice is one, you want to detox the mind. So you're dumping out any negativity, doubt, fears that you're having in that moment.
Hmm.
And you want to do that in I feel statements, not I am statements. You don't want to own it. You don't want to claim it. You just want to get it out of your mind. So I feel like this. I feel like that. I'm having these thoughts come up. Then you follow that up with a gratitude process because gratitude is the key to opening up the cells ready to receive something new. So clearing out the old, getting ready to receive something new, and then writing out your top three goals in present tense affirming. So you're basically, say you want wealth. You're like, I'm so grateful for my abundant wealth. I love the fact that money resources flow to me with ease in increasing amounts, right? So you're clearing out that doubt. You're with the gratitude, you're preparing yourself for something new, and then you're claiming or rewriting your future narrative as if it already is. So you're just putting that into existence. So, the whole fact of spirituality, in my opinion, is to come to this understanding that we are here to be co creators. We're here to be connected with God, with Source, and we're made in God's image because we are also creators, right? So we're here to manifest heaven on earth, and that starts with manifesting heaven within ourselves. We got to embody heaven ourselves. And so when you go through this process, you're able to start realizing how that actually works and the power of the spoken word, of the written word, to become your greatest self, to create the life that you want. And as you become your greatest self, then you become an attribute to all of those around you. If you want to change the world, change yourself
That's amazing.
ultimately.
Yeah.
So
I
that's kind
think
of how I tie
mindset
in the spirituality
is
with
really
spiritual.
everything with what you do and the intention of everything of what you do. Um, yeah, the reason I like to cold plunge, fast, sauna, I like to be uncomfortable because I've been uncomfortable for most of my life. In a way of I don't. I guess yeah, I kind of do seek it at times, but having I think having cancer as a young kid, like I learned what the body sometimes has to go through to cleanse itself. I remember when I was sick going through treatment, I would get like viruses that would pop out, and the sweating of the homeostasis of a virus getting rid of itself out of your body is such a it is a physical thing obviously, but it is like a spiritual concept of like something is exiting your body, and it's really crazy when you actually say,
Mhm.
it is that deep, because people will try to say like it's not that deep, but it really is that deep when you go into the weeds of it and the thick of it, because like Western medicine, they hide a lot of spiritual practices that happened in the past tense, like when the Native Americans were on this land specifically, and we're using the holistic herbal practices. They believed in a lot of spiritual entities being tied to illnesses, whether it's mental or physical. Like they tied it to the spirit, which is why they have like those like sauna tents, and why they have like a tobacco pipe. It's why they have psychedelics. It's why they do so many things. Um, and yeah, it's just it's pretty powerful stuff when you actually go into the history of medicine beyond what you learned in grade school, because they don't tell you shit.
Yeah, yeah. And everything they do tell you is a complete lie, and it's just nonsensical. Um, like the first thing you said is you're talking about you like to do those types of practices because it makes you get
Yeah.
uncomfortable. And I would definitely say, in order to heal, you got to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. That is essential. And like, it's through the discomfort that we grow, that we become the best versions of ourselves. You contract before you expand, and you have to be willing to go through that process. And that's healing your physical body, that's going after your dreams. As an entrepreneur yourself, you know that you go after something, it goes really well, then it goes to shit, and you got to build it back up again. And it's that
Right.
process that turns you into the individual that you need to be to manifest the dreams that you want in your life. I think that's so big. And then the other thing that you're talking about, the emotional side and the spiritual side of
Yeah, you know what I
disease.
have, but
And there's
can
actually a type
you
of
explain for
medicine
the
called
audience and
German New Medicine.
myself
Have you heard of that?
what German medicine is? Because like I've heard tidbits of it, but I still don't quite understand it.
So German New Medicine basically teaches that all disease is emotional, that everything is emotional. The physical plays very little role in it whatsoever. And
Hmm.
I don't necessarily believe that, but I do believe it's a huge role in it, right? The emotions play a massive role in your health. But it basically came about the doctor that started it. He had a son
Oh
die,
wow.
and then right after that, all of a sudden he was diagnosed with testicular cancer. And so he was really healthy before, never had any sign of it, and so he just started thinking, and he basically started collecting all these people who got diagnosed with cancer and interviewing them, and he found this consistent basis of before the cancer something tragic happened in their life, and they took on this trauma or this emotion, and that resulted in cancer. So he basically drew this conclusion. It's almost like a mix between that and Chinese medicine. So as far as like you have your masculine side and your feminine side and all that. So it all coincides with the emotions and what they're tied to and how that impacts your body or where you get that cancer essentially. So like he lost a child, a male child, so he got cancer in his left testicle, and so that's it. Kind of goes down to that level. And I would say that it's 50-50 physical and emotional as far and mental as far as disease is concerned. We do have these physical toxins, we do have these emotional toxins, and the body doesn't know the difference. It's just toxins in the body. Acidic food, acidic thoughts, all of it's going to damage our physical body. You know, we
Hmm.
store the issues are in your tissues, right? The body keeps
Yeah.
the score.
Yeah.
These are all
What are your
basic concepts
thoughts
that
on
are just fact.
this? Is going to be a controversial thing for people that believe in this topic. What's your take on vaccinations creating um, cancer itself? And I say that because I listened to a Candace Owens episode of her show, and she pulled up a study. I can't remember which vaccination it was, but there was a vaccination that linked to childhood leukemia, which is what I had, and it it really lit a fire under me from a standpoint of uh, the harm that vaccines can actually do, uh, because she makes a good point of why would God create our bodies if our bodies couldn't handle the stuff thrown at us? Why do we need a vaccination for it? It's almost like, where's the trust with God in that? And but also with this too, that I'm trying to get at is,
Yeah.
the vaccinations creating cancers like within a child or turbo cancers with recent vaccines, like what what are your thoughts on that physically? What are your thoughts on the spiritual side of that too? And yeah, just kind of want to hear your thoughts on it.
Yeah, I love that question and that topic. And for one, I would say that I don't believe in contagion. So I don't believe that you can catch colds, flus, viruses. In fact, contagion is a brand new concept that started within the last 100 years with Western allopathic medicine. If we look at any of the ancient healing modalities, there's no
Hmm.
such thing as catching other things. Contagion doesn't exist, in my opinion. So, that being said, I do believe that all the vaccines are designed to actually cause disruptions in the body. It destroys the gut. You
Right.
know, these vaccines, if you just go to the CDC website and read the ingredients in these vaccines, I mean, bro, you're talking about you got tissues from different animals, you got heavy metals, you
Yeah.
got preservatives. It looks like a witch's brew. You know what I'm saying? It's like it's black magic. It's I mean, if you look at the word pharmacy is derived from the Greek word
Right.
pharmakia, which means witchcraft and sorcery. It's a form of black magic, you know. So I do believe that the vaccines are actually about destroying the human body. If I mean, we can just look at it from basic
Yeah.
logic and reasoning. Over 50% of all children now have a chronic illness. So if the vaccines
Yeah.
are supposed to increase our health, why is our population getting more and more fat, sick, and
Right.
tired? You know, so obviously they don't have a positive health impact on the body. Now, and
Right.
the they call the gut the second brain now. I would say the gut is the primary
Hmm.
brain. It's the first brain, and it's our connection with our intuition, with our connection with God. And so when we're pumping these vaccines full of all these metals and toxins, it destroys the gut. So it destroys that sense of intuition, that connection with God. And I think that's mostly what the vaccines are about: calcifying the pineal gland, shutting down your intuition. And I think the extra benefit from them is the physical toxicity that comes with that. Just like one of the craziest things about the vaccines is, they got mercury and aluminum in it, and then they have polysorbate 80, which is a preservative that actually breaks down the blood-brain barrier. So you got the polysorbate 80 in there to break down the blood-brain barrier, so then these metals can get up into the brain. So then we lead to the pineal problems and that connection with God in that route. So yeah, I think that it's part of a depopulation agenda. It has
Oh yeah.
nothing to do with human health. If you really start researching the history of vaccines and
Right.
reasons like
Yeah.
COVID, it's
And
such nonsense, man.
the oil
There's no
companies,
science in
yeah,
it.
the oil tycoon John D. Rockefeller created the pharmaceutical industry, which he was the creator of oil and oil based, consumption of
Right.
cars. I mean, they're putting also petroleum based substances in vaccines because, like, why wouldn't he put his own product into a vaccine? Like, and people don't want to wake up to that, which is completely, it's fine. I can't control their
Right.
thoughts or their mind, and that's okay. Um, it's just the facts are the facts. Why would I want to trust a tech billionaire with him creating something you put in your body? Like, I'm not going to trust Bill Gates with a vaccine. And he was one of the creators of the COVID-19 vaccine, the mRNA.
Right.
It's just
Right.
madness, and the propaganda
Hmm.
to put
Yeah.
that up on a platform was very calculated, and it is what it is. But that's the thing, like, we got to trust ourselves and not just put our hands or our livelihood or our health into the hands of someone who just has a lot of money but doesn't, like, that's what blows my mind is how is Bill Gates the decision maker of your well-being when he doesn't even, also he doesn't even look healthy. Like, he's fat, he's out of shape, he's wrinkly. Like we're putting our well-being into the hands of this guy. There's no way. There's no way I could go for that.
Right. Yeah, yeah, man, it's so crazy, and that comes back to the whole thing of like the spiritual side of these things is people want
Yeah.
to give away their personal responsibility to someone else. They don't want to be accountable and responsible for their own state of health. So, you know, if you're chronically sick and it's not your fault, it just happened to you, you just caught it, and then you're dependent upon these doctors or billionaires to fix you and resolve you. It takes out any need for you to make change or actually address yourself. And I think that that's the primary problem is that people don't want to be held accountable or take personal responsibility for their health. So it's
Mm-hmm.
easier just to take the vaccine, take the pill, do what they tell me so that they don't have to take that responsibility for themselves. And so empowering people to take control of their health is really the beginning of having any type of conscious awakening in order so that we can stop following this nonsense and listening to these
Yeah.
ridiculous tech
No, that's very
billionaires that
true. Um,
are into depopulation, just put it
so to
simply. So
transition, what are your thoughts on nootropics and mushrooms?
yeah, so
Mm-hmm.
love mushrooms, nootropics.
Okay.
It really just depends because a lot of them are artificial and made in the laboratory, and I'm not a big fan of that. But I do love like
Mm-hmm.
adaptogenic mushrooms or adaptogenic herbs, which I would say are nature's nootropics, right? And yeah, the benefits of the adaptogen. So essentially, adaptogen means that it helps you adapt to
Mm-hmm.
stress. So whether you're too much of something or too little of something, it's going to help bring that state of balance. And in today's world, when we're put in a
Gotcha.
constant
Yeah.
state of stress from
Because
all angles all the
I
time,
take lion's mane
is a powerful healing
and
modality.
chaga. Those are kind of the two main ones I take. I mean, psilocybin's been another thing too that I've taken. Not as much
Hmm.
anymore. Kind of past that phase in life, which who knows? Maybe I'll get back to that at some point in time. But yeah, so what are your thoughts on since I talk about lab created? What are your thoughts on like nootropic coffee? Yeah. What are your thoughts on that? That's been a craze, so
So
that's
are
why I
you
ask.
talking
And I
about
and I actually I drink
mushroom
it too.
coffee?
So I want my bubble burst
Okay.
if that's gonna happen.
Yeah. So I'm a firm believer in
Yeah.
those mushrooms, so I think that's great. I would say it depends on the brand and what else they're
Right.
putting into it. So uh, I don't think caffeine is good for the human body. So if I recommend it to somebody,
Mhm.
it's to help them get off coffee, and I want one that's going to be caffeine free and really just focus on the power of the mushrooms and get stimulants in general. But I think it's an
Yeah.
amazing tool for transitioning people off of their addiction of caffeine and coffee and things like that. And I mean, I take a mixture of medicinal mushrooms every single day. It's called shroom juice, and it's got the lion's mane, the chaga,
Right on.
turkey
Yeah. No, I
tail,
think it's a great
reishi, and it's
well, I think it's
powerful. I
first and
love this
foremost a
stuff.
great
So
substitute to Adderall and Ritalin. Like, that shit's terrible. So I think lion's mane is such a great transition
yeah,
to weed off of that. Because I mean, when I take it, I don't even take heavy doses. I take like 250 milligrams, um, which most doses, from what I see, most people take like 500 to 1,000. Um, and I remember I took 1,000 one time, and I was like, just so focused in. I got so much done in like a 4 hour period, and I didn't even look up, which was wild. But it was great. Uh, and so that's why I love nootropics.
yeah,
But yeah, caffeine. I was on heavy amounts of caffeine. Then I lost all the weight, and then I was like, I'm gonna get off caffeine, and then like I didn't need it, and it was an adjustment, but it actually wasn't that hard. Like, because I woke up with great energy, I went to bed with great energy, and I rode that wave. And I was like, damn, like, it really is just like me being a little over like me, like I'm not fat, but like it's me having too much fat on my body, and that's why I'm sluggish. And so like to transition to the nootropics has been interesting, and yeah, the coffee aspect is interesting because I had to switch a coffee because at first they didn't have caffeine, it was just the mushrooms, but then they started, I remember I grabbed the bag one day and it was four sigmatic, and I grabbed the bag one day and I was like, holy shit, it says caffeine on the bottom. Like, when did they and they changed it up? And I'm like, well, this is kind of pointless because this is what I was trying to get off. This is what I was getting rid of. But I like the coffee taste. So that was like another thing too. But yeah, like it's
Mhm.
crazy how we can substitute a lot of what we consume. Like, we can substitute a lot of Western medicine. We can substitute everything. Actually, now that I think of it, we can just substitute everything. Uh, and I guess like another question that I have is, what about the electrolyte brands that you see now? What's your, because like I feel like that's like Liquid IV was the first, and now it's like you go down to any, if you go in a grocery store, which I try not to do that much, but if you go into a grocery store and you see the aisle now, it's like filled with all these electrolyte brands, and it's like most of these are bullshit. So like, how is there a way to even just, I mean, do you create your own electrolyte kind of substances? Do you even touch those, or what's your process?
All right, so for one, the best way to get electrolytes
Yeah.
is through fruits. That's going to be loaded up with your electrolytes, through juicing and things like that. There's no better way to get your real electrolytes. Most of the electrolyte supplements are synthetic, and the body doesn't utilize anything synthetic. So, like you said, it's all marketing gimmicks, and this actually ties in with the coffee. When you're drinking coffee on a regular basis, it actually depletes you of magnesium and calcium. It depletes you of your primary electrolytes. So then we have this
Mm-hmm.
lack of electrolytes, and then, oh well, it's okay. We got a supplement so you can supplement those electrolytes that are being depleted by your caffeine consumption. And so for me, the primary way I want to get my electrolytes is through juicing, by eating fruits.
Mm-hmm.
If you need electrolytes, eat a honeydew. You're gonna get everything you need from that, hands down. As far as
Mm-hmm.
supplements are concerned, I do use this supplement called Spectrolite for people, and so
I love
it's
Shilajit.
got natural electrolytes in it, and it's got shilajit in it, so it's got all the trace minerals as well. And that's good stuff.
Yeah.
I've noticed for myself, when you do coffee enemas, a lot, it can cause some electrolyte imbalances, and you take that stuff, and it just takes care of it right away. So there are some good natural supplementation for
Yeah.
electrolytes like shilajit
Which,
and things like that, but
speaking of
you're you're not going
Shilajit,
to find them in the grocery store. I'll
testosterone
tell you
is
that.
such a hot topic with men because it's declining at a rapid rate. So, working with different holistic testosterone coaches that I've worked with, did the ashwagandha, um, did the Tangat Ali, like I've cycled those things, and the Shilajit. So it's marketed as a testosterone booster, but I feel like that's not the main reason that you take it, or the main thing that it does. What is, and you're an expert, so I want you to explain Shilajit because I feel like you would explain it better than I would, just because I'm not a medical professional at all. What is Shilajit? What does it do for you, and how does it boost your testosterone, if that's even real?
So So it's a black goo essentially that is comes from volcanoes, and it's full of all of your trace minerals. So as far as it boosting testosterone, well, we need minerals for testosterone production, specifically zinc. So that could play a role. But I would say with all those supplements, the
Tangat Ali.
ashwagandha, the shilajit, the what was the other one that you listed? The Toga. Yeah. So those are all
Mm-hmm.
band-aids for testosterone, but they don't actually address the root cause of low testosterone that we're seeing today. So I think that those can be great additions, but it's really our lifestyle and our diet that needs to change for that testosterone production. And I mean, we could actually get into what hormones really are from here too, but
Hmm.
what we need for good testosterone production is we need sunshine. We need naked sunbathing. You know, we got to stop wearing polyester or any of these synthetic fabrics on our balls, these tight boxers. All that stuff is restricting those balls and lowering testosterone levels. Um, Drinking tap water, you're full of atrazine, which it
Right.
literally does turn a male frog into a woman frog if you leave it in a thing of atrazine. So we're being systematically poisoned with these chemicals that reduce testosterone, all the microplastics, the fake processed foods. We're not getting sunlight. We're not exercising correctly. We're not doing the breath work. We're not getting fresh
Right.
air. We lack confidence because we're watching porn all the time. We're playing video games all the time. So we are losing our masculinity because of our diets and our lifestyle. Um, and so I play around with this concept of
Hmm.
hormones are essentially the chemical messengers within the body that tells the cells what to do, right? So we are made of 100 trillion cells, and the mind is the governing force for all 100 trillion cells. So essentially, our thoughts create hormones, right? So if we think, if we have a low view of ourselves, we are low confidence, our cells are going to act that out, and therefore we're going to have low testosterone because that's what's associated with low testosterone. So this comes into the holistic side of things. So we got to do all these things with our lifestyle, with our diet, but it's also changing the way we think, going after purpose, accomplishing things, going after that girl. That builds that confidence. That builds that testosterone. So it's so much more than just taking a supplement or anything like that. It's about
Mm.
really
Yeah.
changing
And
all aspects of yourself, and
yeah, I
that's what's
think it
going to boost
helps
that
with,
testosterone.
yeah, just mood balance with the supplements too that I was talking about, because like in the end, that's kind of what ashwagandha and Tangat Ali do. They kind of just regulate your mood and your stress, and that can help with cortisol. And yeah, there's just so many. It's just so many things where on the label it looks nice, but I think if you understand the
Uh-huh.
why behind it, you'll understand how it actually can, help you. So I always like that clarity. Speaking of mood balance, sleep.
Hmm.
What like what's your thoughts on sleep? How much sleep do you need? Um, why it's important?
So sleep is how we heal and regenerate. It's how we get out of this physical existence into the world that's more real than the world we're currently experiencing. So our REM cycle goes in 3 hour increments. So it's best to try to sleep within those 3 hour increments. So 6 hours, 9 hours, anything within that 3 hours. So you get the full REM cycle before awakening, typically is best. It's important to understand that the body works on a body clock, right? Every couple hours, we switch which organs are being focused on, healed, cleansed, so on and so forth. So it's really important that we get into bed and sleep by 10 p.m. because that's when the gallbladder starts doing its work. And so, if say you're staying up till 3 a.m. on a regular basis. You're missing out on gallbladder cleansing time. You're missing out on liver cleansing time. You're not able to regenerate those. And the first 6 hours from like 10 to 4 are the most important hours to be asleep. So you're missing the most powerful hours when you're staying up too late and things like that. Um, think it's important not to eat close to bedtime because then your body is digesting rather than resting. So you're not going to get that good high quality sleep. And I just to bed with the sun and rise with the sun. I think that's the other thing that's really important is when you do wake up, getting outside first thing to get that sunlight in the eyes. We were made to be awakened by that sunlight, and it triggers the gut through the pineal gland to create serotonin, which is our number one feel good neurotransmitter in the body. So that's going to give us energy, creativity, feeling connected to others, motivation. So when we miss out on that first sunlight in the morning, that's just putting us at a detriment right off the bat. Some other things for sleep that I'd like to hit on is turning off the Wi-Fi at night, keeping your electronic devices out of that room. They give off something called EMFs, or electromagnetic frequencies, and this triggers the pineal gland just like light. So that pineal gland is supposed to produce melatonin and DHEA while you're sleeping, and the melatonin helps you heal and regenerate. The DHEA breaks down into your sex hormones such as testosterone, so that plays a major role in that too. So if you're staring at these screens, then you're not producing that melatonin. If you are sleeping in a room
Mm,
swimming in EMFs, you're not able to heal and regenerate in your sleep, even if you are sleeping. So that's a huge one, is cutting out all that. I mean, the Wi-Fi, the Bluetooth, all that stuff is a military weapon, to be honest with you. And that's causing huge problems for our sleep. Some people, you
that's
remove that
fascinating.
and they start sleeping much
Yeah,
better
I
by turning off the Wi-Fi.
yeah, I'm one of those people that really values sleep, really values 8 hours of sleep. You know, don't always get that, but I if you catch me less than six, I am dead to the world. That's for sure. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I'm with you. Um, yeah, EMFs are huge right now. I think that people are waking up to the harms of Bluetooth and Wi-Fi. While they can be helpful, there are definitely harms to consuming those on a regular basis. Yeah. So, man, what? Yeah, what an just an eye-opening bit of information just all around. And, I think that it leads to this question that I have for you. I guess, why is it so important for your physical health to translate to your spiritual health, emotional health, but also like as an entrepreneur when you're starting a business? Why is your physical health such a pivotal piece? I think people do neglect that when they're starting a business.
Totally. So I think that it's important to realize you can't separate the physical from the spiritual to the mental. It's all one. So you can't just work on your spirituality without working on your physical, or vice versa. It all works cohesively together as a single unit. So if I mean, as far as
Right.
an entrepreneur, we live in this culture where it's grind, 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 grind. Go out there and do more, do more. And I think that in reality, that grind should be put towards your self development, your own personal development. And as you focus on becoming the best you that you can possibly be, then that translates into becoming the individual that can create the business or the life that you want, essentially. But it all starts with that, doing that internal work. And part of that internal work is taking care of your physical body. You know, this body is a temple for spirit, for God, for the creator, for whatever you want to call it. And if we're consistently polluting it, and we are filthy, how are we going to expect to create this life that we want and bring it into fruition? You know,
Mm-hmm.
um, we've kind of talked about it already, but the human body is electric, right? And so if we're filling our body with these toxins and these heavy metals, it's going to mess with our level of conductivity, or our frequency, or our vibration. And our external experience is simply a reflection of our internal environment, right? So if we are focused in this place of fear, doubt, negativity, depression, anxiety, and we're eating all this junk food all the time, and we're not exercising or moving our body, we're lowering our conductivity, we're lowering our frequency, we're lowering our vibration. And so we're never going to be able to create that life, that vision that we have, because we're not even on that level. So you have to become the
Yeah.
individual
Yeah,
that is
absolutely.
living the life that you're working towards.
I'm
It's
one of
not
those
the other
people
way around.
that
Does that
really
make sense?
values physical well-being because I can't translate it to performing as an entrepreneur without it. And that's why I've never really let myself go, in a sense, in a bodily term. The furthest I've let myself go in is just not being holistically sound. It's not like I gained a bunch of weight and stuff like that. Um, but the thing is, like, when I started waking up more consciously in 2020, basically, um, that's when I really started to value my physical well being. And now, having this energy, having this mental clarity has given me the opportunities to create offerings that I wouldn't have done if I kept doing the same thing over and over again every day for the rest of my life, and I think truly successful people, truly happy people are healthy and they live a healthy lifestyle. And it's all about creating the environment that you want to create. If you want to create the best environment for yourself, you have to adapt to everyday changes. And then you also just have to kind of revert back to how we survived at in the past. And it's funny because, they say, like, I think the average lifespan has been skewed by the media and by pharmaceutical companies and those sorts of things to promote vaccinations and these medications and those sorts of things. I do think the expectancy was better in the past because they had healthier food. They had not they didn't have the EMFs that we have now. It's so fascinating, which is why it's hard for me to believe the expectancy rate. So it's almost like reverting back to your ancestral like tendencies while also progressing in society. I think is such a crucial balance as well.
Yeah, I think that that's perfectly said. I often say that in order to get healthy again, it's about getting back to our most natural state of being and living the way we are designed to be. And I've gotten lots of pushback on things I teach, and people tell me life expectancy is higher than it's ever been. It's like that is just not true. That is not true. That's what you've been told. That's the story that you've been sold, but it's not true. But even if it was true, let's just say hypothetically that life expectancy is longer right now. The
Yeah.
quality of life that people are living to that expectancy is awful. I mean, I see 40-year-olds that are chronically sick and barely functioning. Their life is awful. They may be alive, but they're not living at all. So even if the artificial drugs and the technology that we have today are keeping people alive longer, it's not a life worth living. They are sick, they're diseased, they're tired, they're depressed, they're anxious, and they spend their whole life watching TV and going to the doctor. I mean, you see these people are slaves their whole life until they retire, and then they get to spend
Hmm.
their retirement in front of the
Right.
TV going to the doctors because they're too sick to live the life that they've been working for. And so I think that
Yeah.
even more
What's your
important
biggest
than
demographic
how long
from
we
a
live,
client
it's the
perspective,
quality
and
of life
what's
that
the
we're able to
biggest issues that you're seeing?
live. I would say young to middle aged
Prioritizing their
women,
health.
women in general are the highest because a lot of men really have a hard time with like holistic health. Well, and they don't believe that what they eat or consume
Mm,
affects them. It's pretty crazy. So men are highly skeptical of anything natural means, is what I've noticed. So it's usually the woman that shows up and then she brings the family when she gets results. So that being said, some of the main things that I see, early menopause is huge. Like that's crazy. Women hitting menopause in their 40s. It's nuts. Um, PCOS, endometriosis, all these hormonal disorders for women, losing their menstrual cycles and things like that. I see that constantly. And honestly, I would say that's the main thing. PCOS is rampant, man. It's so common. Most women today have some form of, which PCOS is polycystic ovary syndrome. So that's when you get a bunch of cysts on the ovaries. It's going to be associated with blood sugar imbalances
okay.
and high testosterone in women. So that's one of the most common ones that I see these days. Other than that, Gut issues, always, hands down, are a major issue. Arthritis, these degenerative
Are
diseases,
these
so chronic pain and things
reversible?
like that are what I see most common. I don't think there's any condition that's
Do you
not
think aging can
reversible.
be
I don't
reversed?
believe in, again, I don't believe in disease, so I don't believe there's anything that you can't
Right on.
reverse. It's all about,
Yeah.
I think that it can be reversed. Absolutely. I think that that's the power of fasting. Fasting is the fountain of youth, and I would like to go into like the breakdown of the benefits of fasting by the hour and the day and why it's so powerful. But things like PCOS is these hormonal imbalances. So if you have them fast with their menstrual cycle, so there's actually a doctor named Mindy Peltz, and she wrote a book called Fast Like a Girl. And some of the most pushback I would get from women when I would suggest fasting is like, oh, women can't fast. It's not good for women. It's only good for men because men are on a daily cycle, but women are on a monthly cycle. So she actually got rid of that excuse by creating this protocol, Fast Like a Girl. So you're actually fasting at specific times that help with the estrogen production in the beginning, and then at the end when it's more progesterone focused, you don't fast because that's when you want to eat more and have more of those carbohydrates and prepare for the actual menstrual cycle. So, but when you start doing that type of fasting and then fixing their blood sugar imbalances by eating the right foods, by doing the fasting, once you fix their metabolic issues and the blood sugar, and then you really focus on detoxification because the cysts are just accumulated lymphatic waste that the body can't get out. So it creates cysts to store that lymphatic waste, which we could get into what all that is too. So if you help them detoxify that, you can get rid of those cysts. I've had women where they told them that the only thing they could do was remove their ovaries, and that they would never be able to have children. And within 6 months of
Wow.
changing their diet,
That's crazy.
fasting, and taking supplements, they no longer had any
So from a
cysts.
fasting perspective, what happens
So,
hour by hour?
so when you hit that 17 to 18-hour mark, that's when you hit autophagy. And autophagy means self eat. So the body scavenges for alternative fuel sources. So that would be old damaged cells. We could say, which I'm not a real big believer in viruses, but we could say viruses, anything that's a protein. So viruses, pathogens, bacteria, anything along those lines, the body would use that as a fuel source. So it's this cleaning mechanism within the body. After you hit about 24 hours, that's a gut microbiome reset. So the appendix is able to actually replenish the microbiome with the beneficial gut bacteria that you need to properly digest and break down your foods. After about 36 hours, that's prime fat burning. You are really tapping into those fat reserves. So, anyone that's looking to lose weight doing these 36-hour fasts on a regular basis is a powerful way to fix your metabolic system and lose weight. 48 hours is a dopamine reset. So your body, your brain will actually start to create new dopamine receptors. So when you do break your fast, your food tastes better. You are more motivated. You have, that's your reward center, right? So you get new receptors. Everything's going to feel better when you're doing those things. And then the real magic is at about 72 hours. From a Western perspective, they would say you have a brand new immune system. From my perspective, you have a brand new lymphatic system. And so you have all new white blood cells. So you're able to eliminate toxins at such a high efficient rate from that point forward. Now,
Mm.
as soon as you hit autophagy, your body starts to release stem cells. And so people are out here spending thousands of dollars on stem cell therapy, and all you got to do is just stop eating. So those stem cells are going to go to whatever areas of the body it needs most in order to repair. So there's a saying which is true: all disease begins in the gut. So typically, the first place the body's going to start to heal is the digestive system, the gut, and the intestines. But other than that, the longer that you're in this fasted state, the more benefits that you get exponentially as far as detoxification and repair is concerned. And it is my belief system that anything can be reversed and cured through fasting for a long enough time. So anything from blindness, what they call cancer, what they call AIDS, any of that stuff can be resolved through long term fasting because all of it is
Wow,
just a
that's crazy.
process of
I
toxins in the body
I
removing
didn't realize the
toxins.
stem cells portion. So when does that start again? And that's how many hours? 36?
So when you hit the state of
17. That's
autophagy
right, because you
is when
do
you
that
start
every day,
getting
you
stem
say,
cells
right?
released. So that's about 17,
Yeah, that's crazy.
17 to 18 hours. Yeah, yeah. Um, and now your autophagy maxes out at
Okay.
about 5 days. So not meaning that it drops down, it just doesn't go any higher rate than 5 days. So you hit that 5 day mark, you're at the highest level of autophagy, and
So,
you're getting the
yeah, what
most
you're
out of your
saying
stem cell
is
therapy that you're
the
manufacturing
autophagy,
yourself
which is
as
the
well.
state of eating, like,
Like
the cancer cells, virus, damaged cells. It it peaks at 5 days, but it will still search for those cells, is what you're saying, correct? Got it. Right, because I think
yeah,
even where
exactly. And
I
that
was
process
confused
continues the
maybe on
whole
that
time
in
you're
the
in that
past
fasted
was
state.
like when I
So
thought peaking, it's like, oh, autophagy is like done, but it's you're still in that state, you're still looking for cancer cells or damaged cells or whatever, but
mhm.
it's just not going to go the percentage is not going to be like 1,000%, like it's going to peak, or it's going to stay at whatever percentage that is.
Right, right, and so really pretty much all modern diseases are a product of consistently violating the laws of nature. It's a state of overconsumption. So we think to reverse diseases, we need more of the right kind of foods, more of the right kind of nutrients, and all this stuff. But it's really about actually abstaining from eating and consumption is the fastest way to heal the body. I mean, even in nature, if a dog gets sick or breaks a leg, what does it do? It stops eating, it fasts. It sits by a body of water and it drinks water and it rests and it fasts. So, again, if we want to know the truth about how to heal the body, just look at nature. They know it intuitively, instinctively. And really, we do too. If you get a cold or a flu, you usually lose your appetite. But somehow we've been brainwashed into believing, oh, you need to eat for your strength, but that's actually lowering your strength, your energy, your vitality to heal. And that's because every time our our digestive system utilizes about 75% of our energy every time we eat. So when you cease to eat, you have 75% more energy that the body can utilize
Mm.
to cleanse and
do you
heal itself and to
consume
repair.
do you
So
consume
there's really no
anything
better medicine than
to
fasting.
like, or is it just water when you fast? Do you consume anything? Mm-hmm.
I prefer fasting on distilled water. So distilled water is completely neutral. There's no alkalinity, there's no acidosis. It is just perfectly neutral. And so because of that, it really pulls out anything with a positive charge. So calcification, inorganic minerals, heavy metals. It's going to do a great job at pulling those things out of the body while you're in that fasted state. So that's what I tend to fast on. Um, some people would drink coffee. I'm not a big fan of that for fasted state. We're trying to
Mm-hmm.
cultivate more energy, not lose it with the caffeine. So I'm not a big fan of that. But primarily distilled water, you could put some lemon in it. You could put some
What
electrolytes in it if you get
type of
lightheaded.
electrolytes would you put
But
in
I
it,
tend to just
in a
stick with
water
straight
during
distilled water.
a fastest? Oh, just the yeah. Okay, okay. If someone didn't have something like that, could they
So I would use
put
that supplement the second one.
would salt?
Mhm.
Like, I know people talked about salt water too. Would that, like, Himalayan salt? Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Celtic sea salt would be what I would recommend most of the time. It's going to have more of those trace minerals. When you put the salt in
Oh,
the water, that can kind of trigger that
gotcha.
hunger response. Like salt makes you hungry, so but it would help to mineralize. Um,
No, what is this
there's this
snake
guy I
diet?
can't remember
That's
his name right now,
crazy.
but he started the snake diet. Have you heard of that? So, so basically, he has people fast for long periods of time and then do one meal a day for maintenance. But he basically just fasts people's asses off, and he gets these crazy results for fat loss and things like that. But he creates something that he calls snake juice, and that snake juice is going to be the some type of sea salt, so Himalayan or Celtic sea salt, baking soda, magnesium. So essentially, you're getting all those electrolytes from a natural substance, and you're drinking that all throughout your fast, and that kind of helps to keep you energized and sharp in that state of fasting. So that's kind of what he teaches to do that. I personally feel best when it's just pure H2O, nothing added in whatsoever. I think it's important to even clarify that people are often like, well, if I'm fasting for this long period of time, I'm going to become malnourished. I'm not getting vitamins. I'm not getting minerals. But
Really?
the liver contains up to 30 days minimum of
That's what I
vitamins and
always
minerals in the liver.
Yeah, that's what I
So
always thought.
you're
Sorry to
solid
interrupt, but
taken
like
care of.
that's what I always thought when I
And
did a
that goes
water
into
fast. But like people were like, no,
yeah,
you need to take like all these different teas and like whatever to like replenish like your minerals in your body. And I was thinking to myself, but why would the body not be smart enough to just have that reserved up, you know?
yeah. Yeah, and it definitely does. And I think that that's a
Yeah.
big problem with our construct right now is we've been brainwashed to think the body is stupid. Like it doesn't know what it's doing. Like, it's always making mistakes and we got to use man-made chemicals to fix these mistakes. And in reality, our left kidney is smarter than we are. Like it's directly connected to source energy. Like it knows what it's doing and so I think it's important to respect the body and allow it to go through its natural
Well,
processes. And
it's really more
so I
just
could go different routes with that, but I'll let you ask whatever question you
like do you think we are put to doubt our bodies, yeah, so we can rely on, medications, pharmaceuticals, food, uh but like you said, the left kidney is smarter than we are, our brain, because that's where we usually think. I guess, yeah, maybe it leads to this question. What do you think about, in terms of thinking with your gut and not your brain? Because like people talk about intuition and go with your gut, and people ignore that a lot. Why, like in a state of making I guess like a decision of, what do I want to do? How important is that? Like even finding your purpose in life, going with your gut instead of your brain, there is something there, and you probably know how to express it better than I do.
Mhm. Yeah, 100%. I mean, and again, this comes back to why we've been indoctrinated to take the vaccines, take the pharmaceutical drugs, eat the fake processed food because it destroys the gut. So it destroys that connection to the creator or that sense of intuition. Like from a Christian perspective, they would say, that the voice of God is that small, still voice. That is your intuition. That's hearing that voice of God. And so they destroy that second brain so that we don't have that natural intuition. We can't connect to that, and then we don't even know how to follow. So our intuition is so disgruntled and disorganized, and we can't hear it because of how polluted we are. So I think one of the best things that we can do in this
Hmm.
construct to reconnect with that intuition is implement a regular meditation practice into your life. You know, prayer is about speaking things into existence. Meditation is about listening. So it's about clearing the clutter, the mental chatter, so that we can hear that small, still voice, so that we can hear that intuition. And so I think that that is one of the most powerful practices that we can
Hmm.
implement. And well, what's great is the best forms of medicine are actually all free. you know, the meditation, the fasting, like it's all free, and you tap into that and that starts to get you reconnected to that intuition to be able to hear that small still voice and follow that. And I think you're right. I mean, so much of the depression and the anxiety today is because people don't have a sense of purpose, they don't have a sense of direction, they're not connected to God or to their own intuition. And man,
Right.
I've
Yeah,
been
that
there
is
and
a
I can
that
tell
is
you
a
that's
hell on
hell on
earth.
earth. That's an awful space to be.
No, excellent stuff. Yeah, it's crazy to think how all these things connected with your body is connected to your mind and your soul and your emotions. how do people how can people work with you? How can people get in touch with you?
So my Instagram is I'm refreshed. I am refreshed. And then I have a link for my Calendly if they want to book a consultation, which I do consultations for free. I offer like through Zoom or Google Meet. I have a practice in Tulsa at Tulsa Healing. I have an office space, which is on 15th and Utica. So that's another way that you can get in contact with me. My Facebook is Matt Michaels, and I'm constantly posting different informational videos and content, self help development, things like that on there. So any of those ways are a
That's
great way.
awesome. Yeah,
You can
no.
also
I
email me at
No, I
imrefreshedx
really
at
appreciate this
gmail.com.
time. It's amazing to speak with someone who is very aligned with just the physical realm and the spiritual realm, and actually debunking a lot of myths and spreading some knowledge on what actually is well-being. Because I think we sometimes get confused with that, and also talking about fasting. I think fasting is so key, and detoxing is so key to clearing your mind and being able to drop gems into your lap from God and actually receive what you want to manifest. Because that full alignment really only comes when you get rid of a lot of toxic spiritual
Mm-hmm.
entities from your body, whether it comes in the form of worms or bad cells or damaged cells or whatever. That's why you shed those. So really amazing stuff. Thanks for coming on, Matt. Yeah, no worries.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, man. I enjoyed it.